Sometimes, on a very rare occasion, a special girl will be chosen to be granted a wish. For her, its greatest desire will come true, as long as she becomes the ultimate guardian. On a quiet, lonely night, a young woman sees a shooting star at her window. Rushing over, she decides to make a wish, a small, secret plea known only to herself. Please give me a sign. Tell me who I'm meant to be. Hey everyone, long time no see, right? So, sorry for the long wait. To be fully transparent, I ended up overhauling the character designs for the story pretty heavily. So instead of going over the magical girl designs today, which are currently also being heavily overhauled, we'll instead be kind of doing a soft reboot of my last video. I know it's a little early to start doing that kind of thing, but I want to make sure that you guys have as clear of an idea of the story as I can give. Because the story is really important to me, and I'm very excited to make it. But if I'm giving you guys misinformation, I'm just gonna feel wrong for that. I want to be clear and upfront about how the story's going, and also just show you guys my process along the way. And when you're making a story, there's a little ups and downs and twists and turns, and I want you guys to all be aware of that. So today, don't worry if you have not seen my first video, because that one isn't very relevant anymore. This one will be a lot more comprehensive and a lot more accurate to my vision for the story. What story is that, you might ask? Cosmic Carousel, my original webcomic that I'm currently working on. Cosmic Carousel as a story is heavily inspired by Princess Tutu, Sailor Moon, Utena, Evangelion, and Bee and Puppycat. So I will say, hopefully, if you guys like those stories, you will also like my story. Today, we'll be revisiting the designs of the main cast, talking about my design process, and discussing the story and characters that I'm creating, and any updates that have come along the way. Now that everything is settled, let's get right into it. Our first character we'll be revisiting today is the main protagonist, Kepler Mitchell. Kepler is a sophomore at the Kelscott Institute of the Arts, and she is the first-year violinist in the school orchestra. She's also successfully on track to earn a degree in music performance. However, Kepler has kind of a secret that she's been hiding from everyone. She is sick of music. As a child prodigy, Kepler has been playing the violin for almost her whole life. She knows she's good at it, she knows she has talent, and she knows it's the safe option. Hell, she knows that she used to enjoy it at the very least. Despite all that though, she just can't bring herself to accept that this is what she's going to be doing for the rest of her life. I mean, she wants the success. She wants the money. She wants to have something in her life that she can rely on. And she knows that she'd be a fool to leave a school that's given her such good scholarships. She can't afford to really go anywhere else, to be honest, but she's not happy. She has so many opportunities, she has so many people around her that seem to admire her, but what else could she do? She stays, but is this all she'll ever be? Is this all she's ever been? When Kepler receives the opportunity to become a magical girl, she's the first to fully embrace it. While the others are nervous or even outright reject the idea, Kepler finally sees a way out. She has a purpose. She has something she has to do. She doesn't have to do music anymore. She can pursue this, do this. She can be a magical girl. Who cares what puts her in harm's way? I mean, she has something else that she can do. She doesn't have to follow in what everyone else thinks of her for the rest of her life anymore. Kepler comes off as kind and gentle, but also very mature and stoic to many of her peers. She's not very talkative. She's in fact quite reclusive in her day-to-day. She really only leaves the house, to get groceries or to go to school. Sometimes she'll go out and hang out with Jules, her roommate, but otherwise, she doesn't really like talking to people. Her fashion style, however, kind of gives off the wrong impression to people around her. She isn't super happy with the way she dresses or even the way she looks, but she feels the need to keep up how people expect to see her. Her appearance is just another performance to her, really. She tries to keep it classy while still being cute in a way. It's actually the main reason why I don't have bows in any of her designs, other than in the future I intend to have her in a performance outfit, which does have bows on. And the reason that she does this is because it's a performance, and overdoing the performance only cheapens the experience. Her contrast between her appearance and, everything else about her has kind of led to her having a mysterious aura among her classmates. Like I said though, she doesn't really like talking to people, so she doesn't mind. She's really just a private person. She only really truly lets herself be herself around Jules, as I said, who is her roommate. And kind of a secret crush. The fact that Kepler is gay is something that she hasn't fully accepted about herself. It's not even something that she really thinks about, because she's so caught up on the expectations of those around her that she kind of forgets to even think about who she is to herself in the end. She tells herself she's fine with this, with everything, but she's in such high standing in the orchestra at the very least. It's only natural for her to be a bit alienated from everyone else. I think deep down though, Kepler does wish she has friends. More friends. She knows that Jules has plenty of friends, and, maybe being a magical girl to her is also a way to find connection with other people, with Annette and Quinn, who we will talk about later. Calliope's design, like I said, is kind of meant to contrast her personality a little bit, but it's also just it's things I find cute. It's a fashion style that I find cute and that I thought would be fun to draw. And her personality has changed as I've worked on her. So, if I compare, her old personality from before even the first video, then maybe her fashion style would suit her more. But now it is, like I said, kind of a direct contrast to who she really is. I'd like to think in maybe a post-canon world, she would have a bit more of almost like a masculine fashion sense. I think that Calliope would be truly happy being more of a gender non-conforming person than she is right now. However, the pink hair has to stay, not just because I like it, but because canonically, her and Jules actually dyed their hair together. So while she isn't the biggest fan of her girly kind of persona that she has in her outfits, she loves her hair. She loves her hair and she sees it as like a sign of her deep relationship with Jules, who she cares about more than anyone else. She has a soft silhouette and palette, and I did also, like I said, I keep saying that she has kind of a cute aesthetic to her outfits, but I still wanted her to be mature because she is, I'd say, maybe she's not fully mature, but she acts like it. So I wanted that to be true. She's a bit abrasive, and she'd also really be a sweetheart. She really does care about people. She's not mean. She never wants to be mean. She just has a hard time building connections with others. Like I said, she cares a lot about her appearance as well, so I wanted to make sure that it was clear that she was putting in a lot of effort when she gets ready for the day. She's someone who bears the weight of the world with squared shoulders and a stone expression. She just keeps going and going, but how long can she keep going, really? Her magical girl form, which, as I said in the intro, is also currently being very much overhauled. I'm actually still thumbnailing everything as I record this video, just because I really want these designs to come out well. I have posted previous designs in the Discord, so if you are curious and you want to go see, what ideas I have had and what ideas I have set aside for now, you can go look in the Discord server that is linked in the description. But what I wanted to say about her magical girl form is that it will contrast her civilian form very heavily, more so than the others, because her magical girl form it shows what she wants to be. She wants to be someone who is free, uninhibited, and doesn't care about what anyone else thinks. So she's trying to sort of fake it till you make it, even in her magical girl design. I really, really like Calliope. Calliope is probably one of the best characters I've ever made when it comes to writing, when it comes to depth, and I love her. I really hope you guys love her too. I'm so excited to make the comic. I'm so excited to show her off more. And if you guys have any questions about her, please leave them in the comments. If you have questions about anything, please leave comments. I love to answer comments. I love to answer questions. And I love to talk with you all. Now that we've finished talking about Calliope, let's move on to her roommate, Jules Ellery. The painting junior at Scott, Jules Ellery is pretty damn busy. I pulled a bit from my experiences as an art major that I'm dealing with, or just like how busy she is in the story. It kind of gives her a reason to not always be there, but I also just want to make sure that it's very clear that Jules has her own life. Since she's not really a main character, we aren't really privy to what she's doing day to day. And I want that to be very clear. So that's something that I tried to, show through both her schedule and I think it makes sense. She's working towards both a teaching degree and a degree in fine arts, which with a focus on painting specifically. She really loves to create and, she loves doing whatever she can to help those around her. So it just felt like the easiest path for her to take. She does hope that one day she can be a college professor, but she's pretty content with the fact that she'll probably end up teaching elementary school for a while. She likes kids though, so she doesn't really mind. Now Jules, she's passionate, she's kind, and she's very headstrong, so she's also just a bit of a force to be reckoned with. It's sort of a fun contrast when her and Calliope are together because Calliope isn't someone who stands up for herself too much, and she's also very quiet. And to contrast that, Jules loves to be known, loves to be someone that is the center of attention when it's appropriate. And she will speak up for herself, and she will speak up for Calliope as well. It makes them like a really good duo, and it definitely helps that they've been friends since middle school. When it comes to things Jules likes to do besides art, she loves to go on the internet. The story takes place in sort of a mix of the 2000s and the 2010s. As someone who grew up in the 2010s, I wanted to bring in some inspiration from my own life, but I also have close family who, grew up primarily in the 2000s and the 90s, and there's a lot of things about the 2000s that I just like. It's kind of a little Y2K thing going on lately. It's a bit contrived or cliche, I guess, but I think flip phones are cool. I want one. I wish I could get a flip phone, and I love the old internet. I'm learning to code HTML myself right now, and there's so many cool things that were around back then that now that everything is sort of, I guess, homogenized almost, or just now that everything has sort of been enveloped into big companies and it's been streamlined so much, it kind of lost the charm of technology. As sort of a background detail to the Carousel, I wanted to let myself have fun fun and show off things that I like about technology as someone who is really interested in it. Speaking of HTML, she actually knows it pretty well. She knows a lot about HTML and CSS. It's something she really enjoys. She has her own little blog, and not many people know about it, but she has her own. She's in web rings, and she's saving up her laptop right now so she can go online outside of her own apartment. But for now, she's pretty happy with what's going on with her life and with her hobbies. She has tried to get Calliope in on coding and making websites and stuff like that, but Calliope is not technologically inclined, you might say. She's kind of stubborn about it almost, where she feels very strongly that she spent most of her childhood and most of her life not having any of this stuff, so she doesn't really see the point in learning a bunch of new tech because she doesn't really care, honestly. And that might bite her in the butt when she gets older, but for now, Calliope is also pretty happy just kind of observing whatever Jules is doing computer rather than engaging in it herself. Like I said earlier, in contrast to Calliope, Jules is also very social. She loves to make friends and she loves to talk to people, but she also be pretty blunt, and she has a tendency to tease people a bit more than is really necessary. It's always in good fun, though. She's always trying to just poke fun and sort of have a good time with people, but not everyone takes it the way that she intends it. She has a lot of friends on campus, and she has a lot of friends online. They don't always come to the apartment just because, as I said in Calliope's section, Calliope is a bit intimidating. So when Jules does bring someone over, it's kind of a big deal for both of them. Jules has tried to introduce Calliope to a lot of her friends, but it doesn't always work out. So they've kind of fallen into sort of a system where, if Calliope doesn't feel like hanging out with anyone, or if Jules brings someone over and she doesn't think Calliope's going to like them, she does have a tendency to just let Calliope know in advance so Calliope can shut herself away in her room for a while. So one thing you might have noticed in this drawing that I'm doing of Jules is that she has a cane. Because Jules is actually an ambulatory wheelchair user. She struggles with chronic pain and disability, and I've done a lot of research into this because I feel like it's extremely underrepresented in media, just people who use mobility aids in general, and I just feel like that's really unfair. So I decided that having a character who uses mobility aids was important to me. I have friends who use mobility aids, and I don't like when there's not a lot of representation for things, and if I can provide some representation, I would like to. What ambulatory wheelchair user basically means is that she uses a wheelchair, she uses a cane, she uses various mobility aids depending on her needs for the day. So she might have a day where she absolutely needs a wheelchair, but she might have a day where she doesn't feel like she needs anything at all. But that would usually be a smaller outing. Another thing that is not evident in her design, but is important to me, is that Jules is a trans woman. She transitioned a couple years before the story started, like medically, and she's really happy with that. It definitely leads to her having some insecurities about her appearance, but Calliope is very supportive, and she has a lot of people around her who support her, so she feels better about it. And another thing that is important to me is having trans characters who their whole story doesn't revolve around them being trans. It's very important to have stories that revolve heavily about the experience of being trans, but I feel like it's just as important to have stories where a character is incidentally trans, rather than that being such a big deal. So with Jules having transitioned to, having started transitioning before the story even started, it's not something she really thinks about that much anymore. Well, she thinks about it, but it's not something that is constantly on her mind. So it doesn't come up as much for her. Like I said, though, she is a bit insecure about her appearance, especially of her body. So she wears a lot of fun colors, and she loves to layer just to make herself look good, but she also wears really baggy clothes because it makes her feel a bit more safe and comfortable when it comes to other people perceiving how she looks. I ended up adjusting her palette from the last design in the last video to have more blues and yellows rather than purples and dark colors. I felt like it fit her personality a lot more. I felt like it suited her a bit better, it suited her a bit better to have this lighter palette because she's a very, very light, happy person, and I wanted to communicate that. I like to think Jules is pretty fashionable. Her and Calliope, I'm really excited to sort of play dress up with throughout the story. And Annette, I said this in Calliope's section as well. I like designing outfits for my characters. I'm trying really hard to get better at it, and I feel like Jules will be a fun character to sign out for, especially taking into account her needs as a mobility aid user. I want to be able to design outfits that also accommodate for that. I think that'll be a fun challenge for me. One important aspect about Jules is she is not a magical girl. She's fairly worried about this whole magical girl thing. She's been worried about Calliope for a while, and she knows that Calliope has been really struggling, and she can just tell that her friend is not doing this. You can just tell that her friend is using this as a crutch, as something to ignore her problems rather than face them head on. It just makes her so nervous. She wants to be there for Calliope, but there's only so much she can reasonably do. Jules is a sweetheart. Jules is great. The one who introduces Quinn and Annette to Calliope, and she's also one of my favorites. I really like the main cast. If you couldn't tell already, You know, I want to see other people enjoy my characters as well. So, like I said with Calliope, I really hope you guys enjoy Jules. She's really fun for me to write because I have actually been writing the comic probably for a couple months now. I did end up retconning a few things, so I'm having to rewrite a couple things. If you couldn't tell from some differences between this and last video, but I'm having a good time. I'm really hoping to have the comic out hopefully sometime next year. So, you know, keep an eye out, and let's move on to the next character, Annette. As a full-time instructor at the local dance school in Kelcott, Annette doesn't really have time for university. She doesn't mind it though, you know, she doesn't really need a university degree for what she does. And she's never really been that interested in going to uni either. She's been doing ballet since she was pretty young, and you know, she's always had some natural skill on the subject. She, you know, pestered her parents to let her do it when she was young, and it just continued throughout her life, you know. Kept up her grades, she danced, she did everything she could, and you know, she had a pretty successful life from that. She was scouted by a well-known dance company when she was in high school, and she had a pretty successful career for a few years until she had to kind of pack up and leave everything behind to Quinn out, who I'll talk about later. When she was in dancing, she would spend a lot of time taking care of her sister, and that was really important to her too. Her fashion style, which I'll touch on more later, is also heavily inspired by her sister. It's a way for her to feel connected to someone that she had to leave. And even though she does talk to her a lot, she is someone that she does really miss. You know, she counts herself really lucky that she was able to get her teaching job, you know, so quickly, and that she had enough in savings to move so quickly given what happened with Quinn. She knows that she's lucky, and she knows that she has more than a lot of the people around her, and she doesn't take it for granted. I will say, Annette is a much more reserved character than the rest of the cast. Not really in the way that Calliope is, where Calliope is, you know, antisocial almost, but Annette is just genuinely kind of shy. She likes talking to people, but she has kind of an issue where she doesn't really feel like anyone really connects with her the way that she connects with them. She tries to get over how lonely she feels by, you know, helping out her students, helping out Quinn, talking to her sister, but she is lonely and she does hate it, honestly. As previously mentioned, Annette did pretty well in school, and, you know, she's always had kind of a barrier between her and her peers. She really was trying to make friends, and she did try for a long time, but, you know, people would either be fake or they wouldn't really seem to see her for who she is. They'd see her for what she thought she was, and it made it hard to really meet anyone who she felt like really did genuinely care about her. You know, at some point, she just kind of gave up on making friends, and she kind of gave up on making friends and resigned herself to a life of being lonely. You know, a lonely star, but lonely. Once that star burned out, though, she was still alone, and she was still stuck up on that high pedestal. You know, she feels like she's desperately trying to find anyone who will see her for who she is, and you just find that, you know, sort of in Calliope, but the two have a hard time getting along because of the magical girl situation. They care about each other, they do, but they fundamentally disagree. Annette doesn't want to be a magical girl. She doesn't think it's worth it, and she doesn't think any of this is really her responsibility at all. And you know, seeing how Calliope and Quinn are so quick to hop on the idea that this is, you know, their destiny, this is what they have to do, she kind of resents it, and she refuses to take part in it as long as she can, even though there isn't really a way for her to refuse to take part of it in the end. She really wants to be friends with Calliope, but you know, this rift, this disagreement, she doesn't know how to resolve it until at some point it just becomes too late. She doesn't know how to resolve it until at some point it just becomes too late. Most would assume that she would consider Quinn a friend. I mean, you know, he lives with her and he helps her with paperwork, but she really doesn't. She doesn't even know if she really likes him that much, to be honest, but he was in need, he was scared, he was in danger, and she had to help him somehow. But you know, it's just, it makes her kind of uncomfortable. She cares for him in the way that she would care for a sibling, you know, but he cares for her in a different way. She knows he wants more out of their whatever is going on, but not only is there a 5-year age gap, she's just not comfortable with it. She doesn't like men. Anna's pretty open about being gay, so it's just, it makes her feel strange. It makes her feel uncomfortable that I did actually have to come back to Annette's design a couple times. You know, she went from long hair to short hair to long hair again, and her outfits kept changing and her face kept changing. I've landed on something that I'm pretty happy with right now. I gave her, you know, I tried to keep her ballerina silhouette within her design and, you know, keep those little allusions to what her passion is in life. Her outfits are also they're a bit eccentric compared to the rest of the people around her, and that is partially because she is shy, but she also wants to dress the way she wants to dress. And my younger sister, who I've mentioned a couple times now, is very passionate about, you know, this kind of fashion and fashion in general. So dressing this way helps Annette feel connected to someone that she really cares about. You know, I tried to keep the silhouette interesting. I tried to have fun with it. I think I'll have to revisit her again at some point, but you know, for now, I'm pretty happy with her. You know, I think she's a fun character, and I think she's someone people can relate to. So, you know, I'm feeling good about it. I'm feeling good about it. And that's what I had to say about Annette. So let's move on to Quinn. Last but not least is Quinn Kepler, who I have mentioned several times throughout this video so far, so I hope you guys don't mind that it took so long to get to him. Quinn Kepler is a high school dropout who lives with Annette and tries to help out with her teaching position. He also, performs various errands for various instructors at Scott Institute. The way he keeps his wallet from being empty. Annette does provide for most of what he needs, but he doesn't want to seem like a mooch with her. And, by doing errands at Scott, he meets Jules, who introduces him and Annette to Calliope, completing the main cast. He doesn't spend a lot of time on his hobbies, but he does really enjoy, cooking, and he likes music. He watches movies, just kind of normal stuff. He doesn't really have any outstanding hobbies or any super interesting skills to him. He's also a pre-testosterone trans man, which leads to him and Jules being pretty friendly when they first meet because, they don't know a lot of people like them. But it does kind of lead to him being overly anxious and extremely analytical when it comes to his appearance and, how he thinks people perceive him. Even if how he thinks people perceive him is not really accurate at all. Quinn dropped out of high school and left home at 16 years old. He's currently 18. For those past 2 years, he had lived with an older woman who offered to give him a place to stay. That didn't quite end up working out. Now, he lives with Annette in a small apartment, and he does whatever he can to help out. He wants to earn his keep, and he doesn't want to seem like a freeloader at all. That's something that he really cares about. Secretly, he also kind of hopes his hard work may get Annette to return his affections, even though he knows rationally that will never happen. She's not interested in him, and he knows it. He knows that she doesn't even like guys, but he's gonna try. Quinn is a bit all over the place when it comes to his personality. He's the kind of person who goes from happy to furious at the drop of a hat. He has pretty bad mood swings a lot of the time, and he has a bit of an anger problem. He gets mad really easily. He is someone who he does care about the people around him, but he also has a hard time expressing it in a healthy manner. He's a bit protective and almost kind of territorial, but he also has the capacity to be kind and vulnerable, He doesn't have many friends. So when Jules does approach him, to compliment his outfit, he is ecstatic. He is so excited to meet someone who not only is like him in the way that they're both trans, but to make someone who could become a friend. When the group does learn that they're destined to be magical girls, isn't that appealing to Quinn? Not only because he doesn't want to be called a girl, but also because he is really busy, But, like Calliope, the idea of some divine purpose, it just doesn't feel like something he can ignore. It feels like something he has to pursue. So he ends up, pursuing it. He ends up going with it, and he embraces it with gusto. And, probably just behind Calliope, he's very enthusiastic about it. But, even despite his enthusiasm, though, he's realized that he's not as powerful as Calliope or Annette are. He feels inferior to them. He feels like they're better than him, and he doesn't like it. As someone who already does struggle with insecurity, these feelings kind of lead into a darker place, and he isn't taking this whole thing very well. He's not handling it well. Him and Calliope both, they sort of use it as a crutch to try and get over their problems, but that's just not how it works. That's not how anything works, really. The fact that, Quinn doesn't really have that many remarkable skills about him is also something he's really insecure about when he's surrounded by people who seem to be extremely skilled and extremely capable compared to him. The fact that he's only 18 never really clicks in his mind when he compares himself to everyone else. He just sees himself as someone who's not quite enough compared to the people around him. And it's something that he really struggles with. He's an interesting character. He's an interesting person. And I hope you guys find him interesting too. When it did come to his design, Quinn wasn't that hard. I found him quite easy. Very early in the story, he looked completely different, but once I got to this iteration of the story, his design came pretty naturally. I wanted him to be the shortest of the cast, not only to indicate his age, but also to indicate his immaturity compared to everyone else. His color scheme was inspired by red velvet cake, and if you have noticed, not everyone, Calliope, Annette, and Quinn are all sort of inspired by different sweet flavors. I thought it was fun. It was a fun way to unify their designs, and it gave me some good inspiration for their color palettes. Quinn was red velvet cake, and it made it easier to design his outfit as well, since I knew that I wanted red to be a dominant color for him. I also wanted him to look a little bit dorky. He's kind of a nerd, and I wanted to make sure that his clothes look like they could have been thrifted. They don't look like they're any kind of special clothing that he could have gotten somewhere. He just kind of picked them up from the charity shop and wears them a lot, I intend to have him recycle, pieces of his outfits throughout the story. He's not someone who has a really big wardrobe either. He's supposed to have also a bit of a hint of sort of an alternative style. It makes him look kind of different from everyone else. He kind of stands out, and I don't know if that's necessarily bad, but I felt like it made sense for his character, that he wouldn't quite look like he fit in with the others. I really like his calico hair. I thought that was really fun. I thought it was a really fun addition, and I feel like I don't give my characters dyed hair enough. So, Cosmic Carousel has been fun, experimenting with the way different people would dye their hair. I think he has some fun intrigue to his design. Like I said, I like the calico hair, and I feel like it helps him, stay at a similar level of complexity compared to everyone else. I'm pretty satisfied with him. I really don't see myself adjusting his character or his design really in any drastic ways for now. And, I think he's a fun addition to the main cast. He's an important character in the story, and I hope this design reflects that. I hope that he's interesting to you guys, too. Alright, soft reboot established. I'm genuinely sorry for retconning so many things so quickly. I did not expect this video to just sort of be another take on my first video, but, this will not happen again, at least not for a while. And I thought about holding off on talking about the changes, but I did feel it was really important to me to make it clear and to show that my passion for it. I want to show, a truthful version of the story so you guys can all understand, what my vision is for what you may read in the future. Also, I wanted to make sure their characters were pretty clear before I started showing off their magical girl designs, because their personalities and their backstories do play a very big, role in their magical girl designs. I really want this series to get out there. I really want to make it, and I also just want to draw up some intrigue and show you all, what I'm working on. I'm thinking of these videos, at least the Cosmic Carousel ones, almost as like devlog, but for a comic that I'm writing. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. As a special announcement, for those who stay until the very end, I'd like to announce that I am hosting a holiday sale on my VGen, which is where I take commissions. Think of it as an apology for taking so long to get this video out. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and, let's see each other again soon. Bye now.